Yes, I'm at the Jersey Tech Fair, and I've just been to a talk, a very interesting talk on artificial intelligence, and this is the gentleman who gave the talk, and your name is?
My name is William Raya. Good afternoon, and I'm the developer of the Uberbot chatbot. This is a basic artificial intelligence program. All that means is you can interface to it using plain text.
Right.
So you can type in your commands, or in future versions speak your commands to the program. It then has a few moments to think about it, and then it should give its best possible reply. So that's how a chatbot works.
I mean, at a very basic level, I remember looking at these years ago for people with disabilities to try and get them to interact with computers. At that time, that was a long time ago, it didn't work very well. It was awful difficult to get voice recognition and things like that. Presumably that's all moved on from that.
I think it has a bit, yes. There's two aspects to this really. The first one is the mechanical aspects of the voice recognition and also the computer speech. So in computer language, that's speech to text, where the computer understands the voice and converts it to text. And then when the computer says something, that's text to speech or speech synthesis. Both of those pretty much now are existing technology, and they're even in mobile phones. Every mobile phone nowadays has that built into it. So that's the one aspect. The second, more interesting part is what happens between when the computer gets its text and how does it know or think what to say. So that's the artificial intelligence bit. So that's where the computer has input coming to it. Like I might say, "Hello Uberbot, my name is Will." Then the computer has to think the best reply and say something like, "Hello Will, how are you?"
You discussed in your talk about how the use of the computer has got onto a sort of a no man's land. We don't quite understand. Playing chess, it's not just about making mechanical moves. You have to respond to the other player, and the computer can do that, respond and beat the other player, anticipate maybe what the other player is going to do.
Yeah.
That's the sort of intelligence we're at now. That's available now.
Yeah. I think artificial intelligence covers a massive wide range of different things. There is no one discipline that's AI. So I think a computer chess playing program, in a sense that's artificial intelligence, because it's intelligence programmed by humans and it can beat the world champion. The same with the game of Go that the Google AI program won earlier on in this year. Now you also have what you might call general AI, which is completely different. General AI can't play a game of chess, well it can't at the moment, it can't even play noughts and crosses, it can't play the game of Go, but what it can do is answer basic questions. So if you ask it, "What did you have for breakfast?" then it might come up with a reply. Or for example, if you tell it your name and then you try and test its knowledge a few minutes later by saying, "What was my name, can you remember?" then it will actually do that. So the general AIs are very different things from the specific AIs.
Now I go on the computer onto Google and I'm digging and more ancient materials coming out of libraries and museums all around the world. 18th century, I love it. It's all the original text and online. All the world's knowledge is being put on Google.
Yeah.
So in theory, the computer will be ahead of the game. It'll have more knowledge than any human being you care to mention. They'll have all the knowledge, but it's still only knowledge which we've put into it, isn't it? It's only human knowledge.
Yeah. I think again there's a couple of things going on here. If you Google something, Google's good at remembering via cookies what you've Googled for before, and it will gradually build up a kind of picture because it knows what you typed in, and if you click on a link to go to a page, it will know what links you're clicking in. So it knows what you're typing and it knows what pages best match what you type, and it can remember that and maybe pre-prompt with that. So that's fine for those specific searches, but Google is not really understanding what's in the pages that are brought back. So I think in a way there's possibly not so much going on there as one might think. It's like a very good form of predictive and remembering for remembering everything you've typed.
You also looked in your talk at the actual structure of the brain, the nerves that make up the brain, and I was wondering, we're going down the electronic route to producing this artificial intelligence, whereas it would obviously be a potential to go down the biological route to create this intelligence. And obviously that wasn't the scope of your talk, but is that an area which could be happening?
Well, possibly. I think again, okay, if you have a neuron, which is what our brains are made of, that basically is the same thing as a brain cell. Our intelligence and pretty much what makes us human is down to the 100 billion neurons in our brain and all the way that they're wired up. So all of that wiring is the physical side of our brains. Now, there's several different ways that AI has of trying to make brains following neurons. One way is by having software neurons, so you can build up neural networks, but the neurons in the neural networks are only a little bit like the neurons that are in our brain. Now, another approach that's got a horribly complicated name, the computational neuroscience, I think that's it, that works on building a real model of a single neuron, but then you need millions of computers all running the same model to represent a brain with 1 million neurons, and even 1 million neurons is nothing. I think a worm has that number of neurons.
You say a worm. Your talk was very much centred upon trying to work out how you decide what is human intelligence.
Yeah.
And of course, all other species have intelligence of some sort.
Yeah.
They have a mechanism. Obviously, their eyes are connected to something,
Yeah.
and that thinks. And if they lose their sight, they still think.
Yeah.
So we're a bit obsessed with ourselves, aren't we, in this regard?
Well, I think we are. I think intelligence is almost impossible to define. It ties in with philosophical ideas as well. Like, if you're intelligent, are you conscious? Does that mean if we found another intelligence on another galaxy or something, would that other intelligence be conscious? We really don't know this, and we can't answer it. And there are even deeper things, like if you're intelligent and you're conscious, does that mean you have a spirit or soul? It's so difficult to answer.
I went to a talk last year. A guy, it was a bit above my head, but it was fascinating, on nanotechnology, dust particles carrying information. You can see the link up, can't you? You could create a brain with nanotechnology, couldn't you? I don't know what it would do, but you could see that at a scale, at a size, you could do it, couldn't you?
In principle, you could, and I think that's even another approach to AI. I think there's a phrase for it, something like emergent technologies. The idea is that a little bit like ants and bees and animals that build up communities with thousands of members, the idea is you could build little robots that are maybe not that intelligent, but if you have enough of them and they all get on with each other, then you'd have this concept of emergent behaviour, where all these things evolve together and then come up with a behaviour that's more than the sum of the parts.
Again, there's a philosophical view about the world, like for some, human rights.
Yeah.
Progress is made on human rights in a philosophical way, but it's the buzzes that people like myself who are interested, somehow or other we get that information from. We don't know where it comes from. It's almost as though there's a thought in the world. Is it possible that there's an intelligence out there which we plug into, somehow or other, a worldview?
I'm not convinced if there's such a thing as a worldview. I really don't know, but I think as humans evolve and we think more about the world we're in, and as our more basic needs are met. So around the world, I've heard somewhere, I think probably more people are actually in danger now of overeating rather than starving to death. Okay, that's maybe not entirely a good thing, but at least it means that we've moved on and there's enough food potentially for the whole human race. So I like to think as humans get more developed and more educated, we're more conscious of all the bad things that we've done and we kind of stop doing them. So slavery is wiped out, more or less. Hopefully major battles and warfare around the world is being wiped out. Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe animal rights, maybe, I don't know, but I think humanity will develop and become more conscious and more considerate.
You're obviously enthusiastic about the subject of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic about it? Is it going to lead us to the right place?
I think there's several aspects. Again, I think the fear is that it will lead to the singularity, which is where an AI suddenly becomes self-aware and reads all of the internet in 3 seconds and then basically decides all the humans belong in a zoo kind of thing. I think that's wildly overrated and is very unlikely to happen. I think there's so much to do, it'll be difficult even to have a basic chatbot that you can talk to. My own chatbot, which is on the web at uberbox.ubercode.com, you can have a basic conversation with that, but it doesn't take long to realise that it is really an AI, it's not a real intelligence. So I think there's a long way to go before we even have chatbots that are any good. So it's going to be much, much longer before we've got AI that becomes a real threat, in my view anyway.
On an everyday basis, what do you use it for? The information, the knowledge you've got, what do you use it for?
Well, I have a day job where I do database development and business analyst work at a trust company based in Jersey. The Uberbot that I've created, I suppose it's got several purposes. Partly curiosity as to whether it was possible. I've always been interested in AI. There's the competition I mentioned, the Loebner contest, which I like to send it to see if I can win a prize. And there's also the possibility of doing a Kickstarter project. I'd like to do a project where we'd build a robot body for the Uberbot and have the speech to text and text to speech. So Uberbot could be in its little body that could roam around the house, you could talk to it, it would talk back. Almost like a virtual pet, so maybe it's a pet dog or
Tech Fair is about those sort of things, and Jersey, in theory, is very keen to be leading the world on these sort of technological developments. So I feel sure the economic minister will be delighted to give you a grant to produce something of that sort. But these are the everyday practical solutions or pursuits that it could be useful, couldn't it? It can. I mean, robots driverless cars, all that sort of thing. These are the practical things which could be very useful, couldn't they?
I think it's almost like being at the beginning of the steam engine, just after the invention of the very first steam engine, or maybe flight, just after the Wright brothers have flown the first aeroplane. I think really we're at the very, very beginning of what can be done with AI and with chatbots. I think a lot of the fears are unfounded. Use something like the Uber bot. It's hard even to make it have a basic conversation. So I don't think the world is in danger of being overlorded by the Uber bot at any time soon.
Thanks much, Nick.